Welcome to Embracing Infinity, exploring the infinite oneness in the space of love and truth. Host Jennifer Rose is an international spiritual medium, healer, channeler, mentor, and transformational guide. Her focus is encouraging individuals to know themselves within the lens of their divine heart and highest potential, to evolve within the frequency of love and peaceful harmony. Now, here's your host, Jennifer Rose.
Hello, welcome everybody. Happy Friday to you all, and welcome to Embracing Infinity. I am Jennifer Rose, and so happy to be here with all of you. And I hope this day is finding you well and you're looking forward to a beautiful summer weekend ahead. I am very excited to have our special guest, Michael ZInn from the live stream of consciousness, coming on our show. We have a beautiful discussion planned for you all today, which I think you'll find really interesting. So hopefully you can stay and participate and ask questions and give your bits of wisdom that you may want to share with us as well. But it's very exciting and it's right up what I love to talk about too. So with that, I want to welcome all of our beautiful guests who are beginning to join. Helen, hello. Thank you for joining us. So happy to see you. Thank you. Grand Rising, Arnie Layton, thank you for coming. Really happy to see you too. Thanks for joining us. And Annie's here too. Hi, Annie. How are you doing today, love? Thanks for all the love. Thanks for all the support. I appreciate you all so much. If you only knew. Stacia, thank you. Thank you for coming on. And there's Marion. Hello. So great to see all of you here today. So as our guests keep coming on and joining, I hope that you are doing well and managing the energies that have been challenging a lot of us recently. Hi, Cheyenne. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you, love. And Spirit has been giving me little bits to offer to people who may be searching for just a little bit of peace and comfort, because I know it has been a bit intense, but as we can remember, whatever goes up will go down, things will settle. But as we're moving into these months ahead and things get busy and there's a lot of like world changes and external challenges going on, they're just kind of reminding us to kind of keep our world a little bit smaller, focus on what's around you, take good care of yourself, keep your connection to spirit going, because that's home for you. Cultivate your grounded, centered, calm, peaceful presence, which is what you'll feel most when your higher self is embodying you and when you're feeling more grounded. So the more we can work on embodiment, grounding, connection to the higher self, bringing that into you, the more you will feel like you can handle life. And when you're like that, when you're able to embody that state of being, it will help those around you as well, because they'll feel calmer and more grounded in your presence, and they will be wanting to feel that for themselves as well. So it's a ripple effect, and it's a win-win that keeps on giving. So I hope that's a little bit helpful for you all today. But keep reminding yourself of the self-love, the self-care, cultivating your ground-centered presence, bringing your higher self in through some meditation, through walks in nature, through your breath. There's multiple ways that we can do this. So with that, I want to also say hey to Jess, and 53 Abani is joining us as well. Jennifer McCormick's here. Thank you guys for coming. So good to see all my beautiful friends. You warm my heart so much by coming on and supporting, and I hope that that you're always getting something out of the show, as we have so many just beautiful souls that come in with their inspiration and the wisdom to share. And I know you always bring that to the table too, in your most beautiful heart-centered energy. So with that, so excited to be welcoming Michael ZInn. He is a creative professional. He is the host and creator of the live stream of consciousness. I had the honor of getting to be on his show a few months back, which was so much fun. And he does all kinds of fun things with art and video and creativity. So please let us welcome Michael ZInn.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here. This is, I love the intentions that you laid out. I love the space. I love the community. So happy to have come across the Sacred Spiral Network and have been welcomed in so lovingly, because this time that we're experiencing right now, we all really
Mhm.
need to support each other and raise our vibration to the most love we can share. And platforms like this, like your show, like my show, it's just so great to be a part of that and be able to offer that. And I feel like uh the whole community of healers, I'm not really fond of like the a lot of the lingo, but for me the experience has been in sharing my knowledge and sharing little tips and secrets about just connecting to your breath and things like that. When somebody receives that and they're like, oh wow, and you see that light kind of go on, it's a two-way thing, right? So like I get a little bit of healing from just being able to kind of give that little tidbit to that person. So
Mhm.
this is great. This platform, these kinds of shows are really where it's at for me. So thank you for inviting me. This is interesting
Yeah.
reversal.
I know, I know. We got to switch places, which is always a lot of fun too. And I love everything that you said there, because the gift of giving is a gift of receiving as well. And that's one thing Spirit always says: when we open our hearts to receiving from Spirit, when they're bringing us healing or when they're bringing us wisdom too, they're like, you're giving us a gift. So they're trying to get us to, kind of surrender to the, letting them give to us, because we're so much wanting to be the givers and the doers, right? And so
Right.
to be on the receiving end is also a gift too. But it's win-win all around, because we do get that gift when somebody is receiving, and you see, the lighting up of that too. And
Absolutely.
it is so beautiful, because in the sharing of self, and the sharing of what we've learned and gained with others, even if it's just our presence and our light
Mhm.
and our
Mhm.
vibration, like you said, that can be just the spark that is needed to open up somebody else's awareness, more than it was before, and make them curious.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a really, really exciting thing. Want to say hi to Gwendolyn, who's just joining us as well. Hey, girl, good to see you. And there's Nancy. See, all our friends are here.
It's
There's
awesome.
Ronnie.
I love it. A lot of love.
Yeah,
A lot of
I
great
know you
love.
probably recognize a lot of our friends here too, because we're our community is joined together, which is so lovely as well. Is there anything more you'd love to share about yourself, of
Um,
just like the
yeah,
platform
well,
you're
I mean,
creating? And
yeah, I kind of I bill myself as a creative professional.
Mhm.
I've always been intrigued by the creative arts, visual art mostly, but any sort of creation. I play the bass as well. I love to write. Any form of creation, I love it. So that's why I guess I took on the moniker of creative professional. And then I find that all of the things that I've loved and learned and done along the way in my life, I'm able to start bringing them together. And so the live stream of consciousness actually came out of me producing shows for other people. And one of my friends who I was producing a show for said, hey, why don't you come on screen and be a co-host? And like, I had never even thought about that, right? I'm really comfortable not being seen and behind the scenes. And the first time I did it, it was just like it was like a light went on. It was just like, oh my God, I can connect to people just by being me, right? Just by engaging in the conversation as myself, and then watching those ripples, watching different people respond, having people respond to the show saying, hey, this really touched me or affected me. I mean, I never expected that. And that's like I said, that when you can help someone else, immediately you get that. I don't want to say gratification, that's not the right word, but this reward, well, I guess gratification is the right word, because gratitude, right? So you have this gratitude for, wow, all I did was share a little piece of myself and it helped that person to grow a little bit. So
I know,
um,
it's so beautiful. That's such
yeah.
a beautiful gift. And I love how that you're connected with music and with art. And as you probably know, that is the space of the imagination, and that's our channel to spirit, when we
Mhm.
keep that space of imagination open and the mystical and, the belief, that is the flow of spirit. So of course you were building your channel the whole time when you were just, having fun doing your
Exactly.
thing, you know?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, I can totally relate to that as well with the different things I've done in the earlier part of my life and seeing them all start to come together. And it's like, oh, that had meaning back then too. And
Right.
oh, that had meaning back then. And now I can use it in this way and combine it
Right.
with spirituality. And I was like, wow, it's such a big wow, isn't it? To be able to, everything you do is now part of who you are and you're
Right.
getting to combine it all together. That's
That's
so
right.
awesome too. I want to say hi to Diane and Michael Christopher, who just come on as well. So got all our buddies coming on too. So my friend, you're right. There are no coincidences, Arnie Layton. So with that, that's a great segue to what we were going to talk about, because we wanted to talk about consciousness today, which I know is one of your favorites and one of mine as well. Well, we
Yeah.
are talking about embracing infinity.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of an introduction to kind of what we want to talk about, is the idea of consciousness as something we are part of, but not separate from. And that
Mhm.
may sound a little similar to what people have heard before, but let's see if we can kind of frame it in a way that might be interesting and kind of like connect a few more dots with that too.
Mhm. Mhm. Sure. Actually, before we do that, I wanna take a step back
Yes.
to embracing infinity, the title of the show.
Hmm.
I'm really big on play on words, right? The live stream of
Hmm.
consciousness,
Yeah.
photosynthesis is my website. Um, Infinity, the word infinity, and the idea of infinity, I think for me it was very interesting. Kind of opened up and my perception changed of the word. So my whole life, when I thought of infinity, it was like this grand thing, right? Like infinity was just incomprehensible expansion outward and just never
Hmm.
ending. And then one day I realized, wait a second, that goes both ways. So when you start to imagine infinity and you're going out this way, that's how it was my whole life. But when you start to go infinity in small onto like an atomic level, and then it's like, we're taught in school, like an atom is the smallest thing. But when you think about infinity, it's infinite. It keeps going infinitely that way, both ways. And I think that was uh, spirituality is interesting because it's kind of abstract. But I think sometimes when you say the concepts, you just kind of know them. It's just a feeling. You're like, I don't know why that makes sense, but it does. And it's just a feeling, right? It's just like kind of an understanding, because I don't think language could really even describe that infinity, both ways. Um, but then so moving forward to consciousness, which is something that I absolutely love speaking about. I think the article that you sent me made an interesting point about the use of the word. So consciousness as the source of everything is kind of one aspect that I like to talk about. Like, what is consciousness? What is the source of everything? But the article also talked about living consciously. And I think that is a little bit more relatable as a human being, to understand and to take a step back. And I think that's kind of was the point of that article, is that we're all really engaged in the day-to-day life and like this hamster wheel that just keeps moving. You wake up and you got to like take care of your emails and you got to get ready for the day and you got to do all of this stuff, that it doesn't give us the opportunity to live consciously, meaning that we're just unconsciously going on this routine and we're just doing, whatever it is we're supposed to be doing. And living consciously is actually taking a step back, taking that deep breath, watching the bird fly by and realizing, like you said, like we're a part of everything. We're a part of the infinite, and and
Hmm.
and not separate from it. Again, that's like that abstract thing in spirituality where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're all connected. How do you make sense of that with the language that we've been given and the tool set of comprehension that we've been given. But I think for me, meeting all of these different metaphysical modalities, seeing all of these different perspectives, it puts it all into place where I can live consciously, meaning I'm aware that I'm a being on a planet with a lot of other beings. I'm not just the only one here, just worried about my own life and my own needs. And I think that, for me, opens my life up to being a part of that whole, right? Where, as if I'm not living so consciously and I'm just worried about my own thing, I'm not living as consciously. I'm living a little bit more unconsciously and not really, I don't think, enjoying the experience. Again, that's just from my point of view. I think there are people who are comfortable in that role. You know what I mean? Just like kind of waking up and doing what they're supposed to do and just going to bed and just rinse and repeat every day. But it's exciting, like I said, to live in this time where I think people are starting to have these conversations that you don't hear at the workplace, at the supermarket. The question, what is consciousness, which is what I ask on my show. It's not like a daily conversation that you pass your neighbor in the street and start talking about.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and there's so much of that, like we could just like unpack too. And you're absolutely right. We do kind of go in and out of immersion to where we're, when we're very immersed into like our personality and our life and this experience of living physically. And then we get a little bit less immersed into that and more immersed into maybe the higher self of us too. And then we're into that more aware that we're aware and like really like being part of the experience too, which is another altered state of awareness. And then there's times where you feel like you're just watching life as a movie and it's not even real too. So there's like all these different ways to look at it too. And last week, one thing that showed up for me was I was doing a reading. And then I spoke about this at my Sunday service too, is that Spirit kind of showed us like the game of life, with the spinner, and you take your little plastic car and you go down and they're kind of like, it's kind of like that, but either way, you're always going to make it to the end of the board one way or another. We're going to make it there and then we'll shift back, to home, so to speak. Home is kind of like where we are, but we're always home, just kind of dipping our face in the pool of this reality, right? But to look at it as a game of life helps us to kind of gain that higher perspective of kind of like more on the outside looking in, but trying to find, like you said, that healthy balance of being in it, not so separated from it that we're just so disconnected that we're not actually enjoying the experience of living. Like this is an adventure, and it's the one time we get to be us, regardless of the other lifetimes. The one time you get to be Michael ZInn. It's the one time I get to be Jennifer Rose. And so the more we can embody that awareness, with obviously, because we're not separate, that also has to be the will of the awareness of us too, the will of the awareness of us to want to be in this experience in that way. But I do feel we are in this big awakening. So it does, to me, feel like the will, this is a big word they're bringing up, because that article, it brings up some issues for people too. But the will of the higher self or the divine to have a more grand awakening of more and more and more beings, more and more souls, what that does, evolution. It's a very exciting time to be here right now. And so maybe we don't have to worry so much about the immediate future of like what's happening. Like people are really concerned with now and like the next few months and world events and things like that. But if we look at it as like, wait, we're in a very exciting time right now. Like we're in a big awakening. We're evolving into higher states of love. And you may not see it right here in this pinpoint of time, but that's a very small amount of time compared to what's happening on the grander scale, which is kind of exciting. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No, and people kind of look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about that, because there is a lot of fear and uncertainty, and things words that aren't like my favorite words to say out loud, right? Because I don't like to give those
Yeah.
things energy. But those things exist, right? Those things are a part of the whole. And I think, in my philosophy, it's not a battle of light versus dark, and then the light is going to win. They're always going to coexist. You know what I mean? I think that's the whole. And I think that when you get past the three-dimensional experience, when you can start to ascend into some I don't want to say higher understanding, I want to say different understanding. You can see how something with good and evil can exist as a whole, and there's no differentiation, because it's all a part of the same thing. And again, that's one of the things I love about the spiritual journey, which is, again, not just a term that I don't love because it's like a catchphrase these days, but like, that's life. Life is the spiritual journey. Our existence in the 3D is that spiritual journey. And again, I feel like the more I start to open up to and allow in, the easier it gets, and the less I try to judge it and try to, put labels on it, light and dark, right? And good and evil. The less I try to differentiate that, I feel like the easier it gets for me, just to exist.
Yeah, very true. Want to say hey to Mike, who's joining us too. Kings and Queens, good afternoon. Well, thank you, Mike. Same to you, bro.
Yeah.
So good to see you here. And when you said that about the light and the dark and the good and evil, I got a very loud pop on my wall. So I know that was very important. So Spirit's giving you on that one too. So that's very, very important too. And when we look at, and it's not bad to look at the differentiation. It's just, if we hold on to it and then go into fear, we're very much in duality thinking and in separation thinking. And that's a more immersed experience. It's okay, but it may not make us happy. It may not make us feel very peaceful in the long run. And, then we're just out there battling our swords and all of this too. If we can just kind of, as, the divine would be, which is us, hold it all in what it is, and understand that there's, as we are in our personality and in our mind, we're only grasping so much, but then there's just that knowing, like you said, you can't articulate it into words. It's in the beyond, right? It's the beyond, the beyond, the beyond, right? That knowing that it's all a big dance that has meaning, but it's a dance that continues to evolve, so it's always going to get better. It's always going to get into something. It just has to. It just is always evolving in more love, more of the, the better experience too. But trust me, as my personality, why does the story have to be dragged out for so long? That's it's like, can't we just get there faster?
Yeah.
So that's my personality. That I want to say hey to Tim, who's joining us too. And then I'd love to come back to Arnie, who was talking about, this is the avatar we chose to incarnate into this lifetime. That's actually very important too, is this concept that we are an avatar. So if we were an avatar, that helps our brains to kind of understand, or our minds can understand, that we're still connected to that will of us, that higher mind, that consciousness of us too. That's there. That's in this no space and time realm.
Right.
Michael.
It's really interesting, I think, because again, even though I love talking about all of this stuff and I feel like I've got a good grasp on it, I'll have a moment where I'm just like, I don't understand what the hell I'm even talking about. But so the idea of living in the 3D, right? So I have this physical body. Here I am. I'm Michael ZInn. I have this ego attached to this part of my experience. But there's a part of my experience that is not physical, the higher self, they call, you can call it all different things, that is that knowledge that we're talking about, that feeling, the gut feelings that you have inside. I mean, what's so cool is all of the different approaches to talking about this subject. So you can go to like Eckhart Tolle, right? The Power of Now, and the intro to that book, where he's like, I was just thinking, I can't take it anymore. And then I said to myself, wait, who is this I that can't take it anymore? And that's really interesting to think about, like where is that perception coming from? And then, so for me, again, I watch tons and tons of podcasts about the physical science aspects of it, like the brain and the neuroscience and the electrical impulses that are happening. And then, a lot of, what's his name? Dr. Philip Hoffman, who talks about space and time is not fundamental to existence, right? And even those things, you hear those things and you're like, wait a second, I kind of understand this. I want to know more. And then there are moments where you're like, that doesn't make any sense. How can space and time not be fundamental? Because we're tied to this 3D experience that we have, right? So I know I'm kind of babbling here because there's so much in my mind about it, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there's this 3D experience aspect and explanation that we can have in our brain. And then there's this, again, I don't have the words. I say higher aspect. When I say higher aspect, I feel like that's adding judgment, right? So like
it doesn't mean better.
It doesn't mean better, right? Exactly.
Broader.
And that's important. That's important. I think that's important. I think a lot of the terminology, we're limited by language. So a lot of the terminology, I think people hear, oh, my higher self, and they immediately think that's better, but the higher self knows that there's no judgment. So the higher self sees the 3D self as an equally important part of its whole self. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. We'll go into rhymes and riddles talking about this stuff. And, when I was in my really intense phase of awakening back, like during COVID, it was like all of the answers to every question was yes, no, maybe, so, kind of, sort of, exactly, not quite. I mean, those were all the answers to the same question. So you will get into rhymes and riddles because there's so many perspectives. It's an infinite ocean of perspective, for sure. So yeah, I get all of that too. And this is kind of a good one too that I could share with you. Is the one way that Spirit explained to me is if we think of ourselves as like this coin, and there's the top and the bottom, like the heads and the tails, right? Think of the heads as maybe the higher self, knows the plan, has everything all worked out, knows what it means. I've got this. They know the whole story and how it's going to be written, or how it's already been written, how it's all going to play out, how it connects with every other story in the big tapestry of eternal life, right? And then think of the bottom as like the tails is like, that's our personality, that's immersed in the experience, doesn't know what's going to happen, is basically, at the will of the higher self to be dropping in the bits of awareness and wisdom. And but it's still the same coin. That little space in between is the veil. It's still the same coin. The coin isn't cutting in half and separating itself. It's always been the same, because the higher self, got chills, wants to experience life as if it doesn't know everything.
Yes, totally. Interesting. So I have I guess kind of a related story. There's a gentleman who recently came into my acquaintance. He reached out to me asking a lot of questions because I talk to a lot of different people with different modalities. I have people who channel Metatron on my show. I have, I've had Flat Earth Dave on my show. I love taking in all of these perspectives, but this guy is asking me a lot of questions about what does this mean? What does that mean? What is the violet flame? Is that for real? What is light language? All of these different things. And so for me, I'm trying to explain that the reason I became interested in all of this is because I was becoming friends with all of these different modalities: psychic mediums, Akashic records, channelers, and they were all vibrating very clearly to me as the same. So they were all kind of pointing to the same, and they were just, what I was seeing was these are just individual perspectives expressing their connection to source. Right? That was just how it manifested for them. So if you think about like music, right? Like some people will listen to a song and they'll love it and it'll resonate with them, and it won't resonate with somebody else. And does that mean it's not music or not a song to those other people? It's just, I think everybody finds their own. So back to the questions of, is light language for real? Is the violet flame for real? I think it's for real for those people who it resonates with. I think if the violet flame makes sense to you and you can invoke the violet flame and get results, what is the violet flame? I'm forgetting the word.
Transmutation.
Transmutant energy, right? You're mutating energy. I believe it's all intention. So if the violet flame happens to be the shape that intention is taking, then that's what's working for that particular, perspective, that facet of source. So everything, I think it's different for everybody. There's lots and lots of crossover. There's, for me, what I like talking about on the live stream of consciousness, let's even break it down further than consciousness to energy. Everything is an energetic exchange. This conversation that we're having right now is an energetic exchange. We're exchanging ideas, mostly vibrating very similarly. So it's going great. There's not an argument. We're not like, well, you're stupid and you don't know what you're talking about. Like those are different frequencies of that. But I think that everybody needs to just know what feels right to them and know that that's okay, and not feel, I think people kind of feel like, oh, the violet flame feels right to me, but other people think it's weird. So I don't want to, express that. But then you're not being true to yourself. If that violet flame feels good to you and you can relate to the way it's working and the energetic signature of it, then that's what you should go with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all very, very interesting too. And I can relate a lot to what you're saying. And I've even had the opposite experience too, because with me, what happened was I had a separation of which is interesting, weird, separating from my personality to understand myself as also consciousness, to understand that. And it took a while because the way that my awakening happened was a little bit incremental. But what I experienced brought my awareness to that point where I'm like, there really is no me. Like I'm part of it all. I'm the avatar, and I know I'm always connected. And so I have a different understanding of that too. And so then I look around at all of these different beautiful tools and aspects, and it's like, well, do we need all that? And I kind of feel like all of those things kind of get you to that point of understanding yourself with that too. But then I realized these are all like beautiful colors of the same rainbow. They're all ways of expressing spirit, and spirit, God, consciousness, universe, whatever you want to call it, is loving being so colorful in itself. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
As loving, providing all of these different ways and tools and, creative, imagination and ways of working with energy and so forth to get to understanding more of self too. And so, and that was much more, I loved that, as the me, because it's more fun. It's just more fun. You know what I mean? It feels a little lonely, kind of sometimes. It feels a little lonely sort of being in a place where you're understanding things, but you're not like playing with all of the pieces on the board. Does that make sense? It's fun to play with the pieces on the board. It's fun to play with the violet flame. It's fun to look at auras. It's fun to play with cards, all of that stuff. And it all gets you there. They all have, little aspects of things that they teach us too. So that was beautiful how you shared all of that too. Minty May is saying, and hi Minty, he looks at life like playing a role-playing game and wanting to experience different ways of living and meeting different people and hearing different thoughts. Yeah, it's beautiful intermingling.
Yeah.
Of
And I think
points of awareness.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about this right here, this platform, this exchange.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, it's interesting for me to be in this spot because I'm the one, I like to hold the space. I like to say, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me what it is you do. Tell me, but So I'm just thinking here. There's so many different aspects to spiritual philosophies, and understanding spirituality and kind of awakening and kind of raising up your levels of awareness. And I think one of the parts of what we're kind of given, is the idea of ego. And so we're born into a family, we're given a name, we're given a religion, we're kind of given these parameters, and we have to learn how to kind of live within those parameters. And I feel like, without getting into like conspiracy theory and things like that, I feel like it's very limiting, and it's been kind of formed to limit us, and not really be able to explore consciousness and things like that, which is why these conversations aren't in the workplace and in school and stuff like that. Fortunately, they're starting to happen, and science. I think I'm so excited about the scientific breakthroughs that are happening with consciousness. Science is actually even looking at consciousness as a thing now, and saying, yeah, we don't understand this. And growing up, I probably would have said in school, if you asked me what consciousness was, I probably would have went, it's electrical impulses in your brain, and that's where it's like based in material. But now we're starting to understand with quantum theory and all of these things that there is this energy that exists that we kind of don't understand yet. And that is, what did I say about time and space not being fundamental? So that energy is fundamental. And that life comes out of that, not it comes out of life, right? Your brain doesn't create consciousness. Your brain kind of just tunes into consciousness. Your brain is like the radio that tunes into that frequency. So
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that. But it's an interesting assignment to be a human being, and navigate the 3D world. And I think it gets even more interesting when you do start to become aware of the things that are outside of the 3D. And now you have to find this balance, because you still have got to navigate the 3D. That doesn't go away. You're still navigating the 3D, but now you have this other knowledge that you need to kind of apply. And like you were talking about being excited, and I think I mentioned this, like people think I'm crazy when I'm like, this is such an exciting time because of all the fear and uncertainty. I feel like it's exciting because humanity is starting to become more aware of itself and the things that have kind of been buried, by whatever systems were put in place.
Very true. Humanity is becoming more aware of itself. That was beautiful. It was like the whole, you kind of put it in as a whole. That's why I caught that too. And I got another knock on my wall, as well. And so this kind of leads us into a little bit of like what all of that we are talking about with science and everything is. One is like the Deepak Chopra article that we looked at was talking about, where do thoughts come from? They really just from neuron impulses in the brain. And that's a big question. Where do thoughts come from? Consciousness. We're channeling them. They're streaming into our reality. And then when you're talking about science, I had this conversation with Paul Bannister when he was on several weeks ago, a couple of months ago too, was he had come across something he read or watched that found that the cells now that we thought were just little globs of, plasm or whatever, with a couple little nucleus and a this and a that, are actually very complex systems that look like a computer, like a computer program, basically. So that sparks the question, who's the programmer, right? It means that sparks who's the programmer, what's behind that? What's behind energy, light, matter, sound, frequency, vibration? Well, what came before that? What created that? Right. And so that opens up a whole Pandora's box. And so I think one of the reasons why it's hard to go into these topics is because it creates this existential crisis. And a lot of people, when we start to explore these things, there's no me. What? I'm not me. Who am I then? What am I? Am I dying? And then we go into the dark night of the soul and all that. And there's this, what people might call the death of the ego. But it's part of the process of discovering yourself as a spiritual being, having a human experience, which we know in our minds, but we don't, there's a difference between knowing it and really knowing it and really being in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's what you can conceptualize and what you actually understand and live is those are two very different things.
sure, sure. Yeah, I think I had come up with this saying that every thought that you have, like if you have a thought, you've now expanded the universe just by having that thought, right? So that thought now exists where it didn't before. It
Mhm.
exists, even if it's just a thought in your head. It's manifested itself somewhere physically, because you thought of it, you brought it into existence. Like it may not be physically the way we think about it, what that thought is, but in it's some form of consciousness. So that's interesting. I had a conversation with Lori Ladd, who is an author who wrote this book called The Divine Design. And she had this experience. She went to Machu Picchu and had all of this information downloaded to her about the origin of the planet and how it's set up as far as dimensions and the 3D and the 5D all the way up to the 12D. And I was given the book and I started reading it, and it's a tough read. It's like you've got to kind of go back and read the sentences over and kind of try to understand it. But I'm not a big reader, and I didn't feel like I was reading. I felt like this was knowledge that was just kind of being exchanged with the book. I was feeling it. So in my interview with her, in my talk with her, I realized as I was speaking to her. So in the book, she's talking about how the earth was created through intention and energy, and that's how she created her book. So suddenly I realized that her book was a consciousness. She had created this book that now existed as a thing, and that thing would communicate with other people. I mean, it communicated with me. I was exchanging with the energy with that book. So that book became a consciousness. So that kind of blew my mind to just realize that as we were talking about it. I was like, oh my God. Like, so
Mhm.
that's how I look at everything, right? Everything exists in this energetic realm, and we're just kind of tuning into the 3D aspect of it right here so that you and I can have this conversation.
Right.
So
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Oh, you made me
yeah.
so happy. I know. I love this stuff. Minty May said something really interesting, which reminds me of, he says, cells for me are like a world inside of a world inside of a world and travels in infinite worlds. That is so perfect,
Mhm.
perfectly expressed. Reminds me very much of The Wrinkle in Time. It's a movie, kind of geared for children, and there's a set of books, but the author of that, I can't remember her name, did another book that was very much like the universes are inside of you, like your
Mhm.
cells and your organs are like little mini universes
Mhm.
inside of you, and you're like God to your body in a way,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so that's a beautiful exploration and makes us really look at our body also as something to be really respected and valued and treated
Sure.
kindly, and to give that love to ourselves too. So but I
Sure.
love how you said that, Minty May. Thank you for that. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, Minty's awesome. And it's
Yeah.
interesting too. So I often say, like I love coming up with these things because they're channeled, right? They come from somewhere. But
Mhm.
I talk about the fractal nature of existence, right? And so if we look at a solar system and we look at an atom, we can see the similarities to that. So often, I mean, I can remember as a kid imagining that each human being was like a cell in a body, and we are all part of a bigger creature, like there's some bigger creature that we're a part of, and that really is kind of a metaphor for God and source and all of that stuff, right? So I mean, it all really really makes sense. If you don't think about it too much, I was going to say if you think about it makes sense, but if you don't think about it, I think that's when it starts to really make the most sense.
I know, right? And there's the riddle in that too, the riddle and the mystery, and so perfectly said. Hey, Jack, thanks for joining us as well, and Jessica also. Hope I haven't missed anybody. If I haven't said hi, sometimes the comments don't always make it into the for where they should be. I hope that they would, but you never know when we're streaming to multiple pages. Um, but one thing I love is what you just said is so important because we can get very cerebral with these discussions, you know, and oh. Look.
Interesting. I think that's a Mac thing. If I do,
I think so.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You
That
never
was
saw
so
that?
cool.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't,
Here's a
I'm
good
on a
one.
Mac. Mine doesn't do that. I have an app. I don't have
You
that.
gotta have. I think you gotta have the new M1 chip, the new Mac chip.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. That was so cool. I know that happens on Zoom and stuff, but I've never had it happen on stream. That was super cool.
Triggered by like a thing. There
Yeah. I've seen that on like the iPads and the iPhones, but I have
Technology.
that's cool. Okay. You got to tell me about. Hey, Fawn, thanks for joining us too. Anyways, I had so much fun with that. But getting back to it too, is we can get so cerebral sometimes that it loses a little something because there's the heart, the spirit, the soul, that kind of part of it too. And I do feel like that's important because sometimes it just can get so analytical and intellectual that what does that mean here now that we can really feel and embody to have that experience of us as spirit. And I feel like you get that because I can feel you. I can feel your spirit. You have a very grounded, authentic vibe to you. You know, you're just kind of like open and here and like this too. And that's why it's so important that we can talk about these big ideas, but how do they help us here? Right? What can we do with that here?
Yeah. Can I? You just made me think of something.
Please.
I want to make a
please.
suggestion.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah, something that really, again, works for me and brings me peace, keeps me grounded and happy. You know, I mean, I'm just a regular guy, right? I've got bills to pay, I've got worries, I've got all of this stuff, but I choose to live my life at a much more level energy space. You know, I don't worry about a lot of stuff. You know, I try to see the best in everything. And I think, I just had a thought and now it went out of my head. It was just about, so I remember what I was going to say. So suddenly I realized a couple of things about myself. One was, it felt so much better to me. Oh, I've got to go get my plug for my computer. It's about to die. It just gave me the warning. When I started to realize how much judgment was weighing me down, right? Like just looking at other people and making decisions about who they were and what they did and all of these things. I realized that was bringing me down, and suddenly I started to see my reflection in everybody that I encountered. So I would go to the supermarket and, you know, there's like this din of noise, everybody's talking, and I would all of a sudden focus in on a conversation, and I would look over and there's these two people talking, and I would suddenly see myself as both parties of that conversation, the young kid who was working at the supermarket and the old woman who he was talking to. And it was just like a split second of a moment, but it was so, oh my God, it was like, it was so beautiful to realize that I am everybody. You know what I mean? Like we are one. And I think from that moment, I was able to tap into that intentionally. I was able to say, hey, I want to feel that. I don't want to look at somebody and judge them. I want to look at somebody and I want to love them. You know what I mean? I want to see not what's, I don't want to say not what's different, because I think what's different is what's beautiful, right? What makes that person different than me is what makes them who they are. And I think that's beautiful. And I think the moment that we're living in is people have been really programmed to look at those differences and zone in on them and be like, oh, you're different. What? And it's not that. It's like, wow, that's cool. I don't experience life that way. I would love to know more. You know what I mean? That kind of openness. Let me just grab my, I just got to run and grab my thing. Sorry about that. If you want to just talk to the audience for a second, I'll be right back.
Absolutely. Go do what you got to do. Hey, Cheyenne, thanks for joining us Tuesday. How y'all doing? Thank y'all for holding space for us and for each other. So how are we all doing? Stacia, what is it you want? The computer so that you can do that? Mention made quiet healing as well, as it can be a snapshot into what we may need to heal or may need to share. That's absolutely true. And, you know, we can all catch ourselves like judging things because those are perspectives. And the more we're like immersed in our personality, the more we will have those perspectives and judgments. But as you know, like Shakespeare used to say, life is a stage and we're all actors upon it. What's lovely is once we get to kind of understand that we're all actors upon it, hopefully we can, with more intention, really like embrace the excitement of watching kind of like the different roles being played out. And each of us as individuals are all playing many different roles. We may be the hero in someone's world. We may be the villain in another person's world. And like, well, how could that be? Because everybody is living life from their perception that they're channeling through their reality, right? And so there's all these different kind of characters and roles. And as an individual, you may be a parent, you may be a sister, you may be the son or daughter of somebody, you may be a teacher to somebody else. And so there's just so many different roles, and we just continually move in and out of these, and we don't even realize we're doing it. We're not fully conscious that we're shifting roles and shifting perspectives, all of this too. But it happens. And so what's exciting about getting into more awareness is we start to become aware of this too and see it for what it is. And what's lovely is what Michael just brought forward is we start to realize that even if we have a breakdown of self, that sort of existential crisis that we will have with spiritual awakening, with the dark night of the soul, with Kundalini awakening. Even with that, we will have, I think we lost Michael. Hopefully we can get him back. You can just click on it. There he is. Whew. Okay. Even if we have that, we can embrace the gift of that, the gift of understanding that we are a part of a whole that's in a continuous, beautiful rainbow pool, ocean of the everything, right? Then you do start to realize that no one's really to blame for anything. And you go, what? But you can hold space for it. Oh my goodness. There's the water. There's the computer. We've got electricity. We've got water. It's all good. You made it back.
Sorry about that.
It's all good, Michael. So I was just kind of like bouncing off of what you said is the gift in starting to understand that we're spiritual beings having a human experience and we're all connected to it, right?
Yeah.
So the hard part is the existential crisis. You know what? I don't have control over everything. I don't have free will over everything. What? Am I a puppet on strings? Like those type of questions will start to happen. Those are very uncomfortable for people. But the gift is what you just said. You have less judgment. You start to see the purpose in it. You start to see you're that person and you're that person. I'm God, you're God. I'm source, you're source too. Did you ever see Peaceful Warrior, that movie about Dan Millman? I brought this up in a different show. But it was based on a true story, but he was a gymnast who was in a motorcycle accident and then kind of met a sort of a spirit guide and then was able to end up like competing and winning, which was against all odds. It was miraculous, but it was because of what he learned. But there was that same experience where he had a moment of consciousness where he could see the interconnectedness of everything and realize there were no ordinary moments. There were no ordinary moments. And I feel like that's what happened for you when you were at the grocery store and you're like, they're me, I'm them. There are no ordinary moments. That's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
And it was like, you know, people describe like an NDE, right? Or like these moments of feeling just unconditional love and bliss. And that's really what it was. It was just, again, it was like a millisecond, but enough of a time that I can recognize that was what was happening. It was like literally just like going into that person. Like I think in that example, it was, like this older woman saying, oh, when I was your age, and the kid was like, oh, and it was just, again, I felt like I had experienced both sides of that conversation at some point in my own existence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. It really is. It's beautiful, exciting, and mystical and mysterious too.
Yeah.
Minty is saying recognizing judgment isn't always a bad thing either, as it can help us change and evolve as well. It's remembering if we do judge, we must also be willing to acknowledge when we're wrong as well, taking our own personal responsibility, our part in that in exchange,
Yeah.
of experience to knock
Right.
on the wall. Right. So, because if
Right.
we're all like you all the time, and we don't realize like we've played some kind of part in that as well, and
Sure.
investigating that, that
Right.
can be very helpful and freeing of the energy too. Judgment is perspective. Perspective isn't wrong, right? It's just kind of like, how much do we hold on to that? How much of that goes, brings us into a downward spiral or into a fear-based place? Again, that's not wrong either, but there is a balance of that, because we
Sure.
do want to keep evolving and doing better and getting more of that love and oneness. Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, and
are we all settled?
I think
Yeah.
also, it's easy to find compassion, right? When you realize, wait a second, I was also conditioned to a certain point in my life when I suddenly realized, wait a second, there's more than this. I don't, this doesn't feel right. And then, so my own level of awareness or whatever is now here, but to now see someone who maybe hasn't experienced that, not to be like, oh, you'll get it one day, but to be more compassionate and be like, I understand where you're coming from, because society has imposed all of these variables on you, who you think you should be, how much money you should have, what you should look like, how much you should weigh, all of these things that really are so insignificant. And we as a society, we're sold all of that stuff, right? In the magazines and movies and all of that stuff. And I don't think that those things are bad. I just think it's the relationship to how we compare ourselves to those things, right? Instead of saying, oh, well, I'm not that, just be like, oh, that's so cool. Look at how beautiful that is, that person is that way, and see your own beauty. You had said something earlier in the broadcast about, you are the only one who can be Jennifer Rose, and I'm the only one who could be Michael ZInn. That was another amazing, amazing moment in my life to realize how good that was, right? Whereas I think previous to that, you're like, oh, I'm this, and comparing yourself to other things, but then all of a sudden realizing nobody can ever be me. Nobody can ever be me, and I can't be anybody else. So I might as well be the best me that I can. That's my purpose in life, right? I always make a joke when people, that's like the big question, right? The big existential question. What's my purpose in life? And I always say, the answer is you. You are your purpose in life.
Yes.
And the answer is different for everybody, right? You're a different you than me. So, again,
and
simple.
without
ahead,
without you, Michael ZInn, in this world, it's like poking a hole in a piece of fabric. Like they have these things called seam rippers when you sew, and you can undo something you've sewn with. You just poked a little hole or took a little thing of that thread, the whole thing would unravel. Like life would not exist without you in it. Like it would all go away. That's how important each and every one of us is.
Exactly.
And you're right. Knowing more doesn't mean better. And we put people on pedestals with that. And that's, that can be problematic, because it puts people in a place where they would have to be perfect for you all the time to make you happy. So we don't want to, and then you set yourself as that person's better than me. And that's not really an act of self-love. So it's kind of lose on both ends in that, in that respect too. And everybody's on their journey, and there are people who are meant to be immersed in their reality. That's their journey. And who are we to judge? Who are we to know what's going on in their thoughts behind closed doors? We're just seeing a little pinpoint, a little snippet of their life. We don't know the whole story. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I guess embracing what we still don't know is helpful.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Mitchie May says there's a famous quote: "If you're the smartest person in the room, find a different room."
Yep.
That's a really good one.
I love
That's
that.
a really good one. Oh my gosh. Well, I know we could talk about this stuff for hours, but what would you like? Oh God. Tapestry of Being, beautiful. Kai Minsky. And then Jennifer saying we're all part of the tapestry. Stacia saying love that. Mitchie May saying truly magical, knowing there is only one of you, even if you're twin, you're still on an individual as well. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And what a great moment that we're in right now with all of the energy of all of these people who share that philosophy.
I know.
And are just like, ooh, yeah, I like this. This makes sense. This feels good. I know. That's why I love talking about this stuff. I think, sometimes you forget when you're in a community that there are people who need to hear this kind of stuff because they haven't, and then opens them up to now take that path. So this gentleman I was talking about earlier, who is kind of like starting to discover all of these things, again, I love that he was asking me these questions because it gave me the opportunity to like channel wisdom, right? So he would ask me about something, he said he was looking for his aha moment. And I said, it's not something that you look for, it's something that you become. And I'm like, whoa, what did I just say? And I broke it down and I'm like, that makes so much sense. And I start to so it's almost like Bashar. So Bashar is really becoming very popular now. And that's what I felt like for a moment. I was like, wow, someone said something to me and I responded with some wisdom that I feel would help, that would answer that query, in a way that isn't too like, I don't have your answer, but I'm giving you an answer to help you find your own answer. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I think it was Friedrich Nietzsche said, become who you are, and it's just that we're just this unfolding, blossoming, continuous flower that never dies and that grows too. And I do believe Jesus said that too. It's like the answers are within you. The kingdom heaven is within you. And so multiple us's in different costumes saying the same thing. And that is kind of like the journey of getting to that understand. Oh, it's always been in there. It's Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Same thing. You've always had it. You just needed those little red shoes. That was your tool to get you along the way with your little guides that came into series of moments. But it's wonderful. We're all sharing this moment, and it's a moment we won't get again, but it will become a beautiful memory. Yeah. That's beautiful.
That. Nice.
My Minty May. You have a lot of good philosophy there.
Minty's
we have
great.
to talk.
I have Minty on my show. He's awesome. Authenticity is so beautiful and so hard to fake. You can't fake it. That's the whole definition of it, right? Is it's not fake. I just love this community. There's so many authentic beings just speaking their own truth, and I guess in just speaking that truth, we all are supporting each other and validating other thoughts that I might have, and is this true? Maybe I don't know. Yeah, these other people say it and believe it and are it, right? When I said you don't look for an answer, you become it. Right? I think that's it. Accountability is the thing, right? Is like, just be accountable for who you are and how you treat other people. And I think the world will be a better place.
I think so too. Yeah. And, I think that's one of the hardest parts about the human journey is within authenticity, because it can be looked at in so many different ways, but learning to be you sort of unapologetically, and that might not be acceptable to everybody around you, but it's this one life as you. How do you want to live it? For other people, to make them happy, or to live your best life. And eventually, everything falls into place, right?
Mhm.
But it takes a lot of courage to do that. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of courage because, like you said, we've grown up in a reality or in a system to conform to make everybody else happy. Right? If I don't
Mhm.
get good grades, I don't make my teachers happy. I don't make my parents happy. If I don't act this way, I don't make my friends happy.
Mhm.
So there's this unraveling of that self into the more of you, like
Mhm.
the more, there's
Mhm.
more, which is really exciting. Um, that was so beautiful, Michael. Any other last words you'd like to leave us with? I do believe Kelly has posted your info in the chat box. If we could maybe get that again so people can find you, find your YouTube channel and subscribe. We thank you for subscribing. We thank you for sharing. We thank you for hearting. We thank you for commenting. We thank you for tagging. Thank you for giving our pages a like and a follow, including Kelly and the Sacred Spiral. We
Yep.
really appreciate it. Thank you. It helps us to keep growing and to serve more people. And then with that, Michael, what would you like to leave us with?
I just want to thank everybody who came to this moment intentionally for the live. Anybody who's coming here for the replay and you're watching this after the fact, I want to thank you for putting your energy into it. Right, you're looking to connect to a conversation, to the two energies that are on the screen right now, and I just feel like the more open we are to receiving other people's energy, the closer we are to that collective consciousness, raising the vibration to where it damn needs to be.
I love that. I love that.
And
Thank
we're
you so
getting
much.
there. We're definitely getting there.
Welcome home. Welcome
Yeah.
home. That's a perfect. That's it right there. It's welcome home.
Yes, thank you. I'll give them more of these.
That's ironic because I just did, I know, right? I just did my healing meditation, and I do a little channeling at the end, and that's what Spirit was saying over and over again: welcome home, welcome home, welcome home to the group. And I'm like, whoa, did that just happen? It did. You can't make this stuff up. So
You know what?
anyways,
I do
yes,
have something else I want to talk about real quick.
Please.
I had an experience recently, and I've spoken to so many people, and I've heard so many people talk about their different experiences in different ways. So I'm sure you've heard, and your audience has heard, of people talking about an experience as a download, right? Where you're getting information, you don't know where it's coming from, but all of a sudden your brain is full of ideas and thoughts. I had an experience recently that I could call a download, and I hadn't had one up until that point where I would say, "Ooh, that's a download." This definitely felt like a download, and the experience and the information that I was downloading or thinking was a word that you used at the beginning of this broadcast: imagination. I was told, and again, I usually don't speak like that, but that's what it felt like, that reality, the real reality, isn't three-dimensional. It's in our imagination. And not like, I think there's a connection when you say, like, when a kid, oh, you're just imagining it. There's like this, it's not real kind of thing, right? Imagination is not real. Well, I think it's the opposite. I think that imagination is where reality actually exists. I started to think about, as I was receiving that information and thinking about it, some of the people that I know who are channels, right? So this woman, Wendy Gale, who channels Metatron, I said, oh, that's how she does it. She imagines Metatron, which basically conjures up that energy, and then she connects to that energy. So she is, in her imagination, channeling the reality to the three-dimensional plane, if that makes any sense. But that's what I was told, and I believe it. I believe that imagination is where reality exists. And I was even saying earlier that every thought that you have expands the universe, because now that thought exists in that that pool of thoughts. And so I think it's important, and I think we need to get back to that. Kids they're so much closer to source than we are. You know,
Oh, so true. Yeah,
yeah.
so true. And that's where mediumship happens, is in the imagination part
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
the mind too.
Exactly.
And that's why spirit, through our dreams and through symbolism and through color and music and poetry and writing, expresses itself, right? And we're always wondering, like, why don't they, tell us information when we're connecting mediumistically, you know, um, in a certain way, because they're in that place, right? And so they love to use symbolism. They love to express themselves in the most colorful way that they can, which is so beautiful. So
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
are spot on with that.
Wow.
And as I love to quote, and I won't get it exactly right. I wish I had it with me right now. The Mad Hatter, uh, over with Alice in Wonderland, the sequel that they made called Through the Looking Glass, and she's about to go back in through the mirror back into her reality.
Hmm.
And he's like, in the gardens of dreams, in the palace of whatever, I can't remember exactly how he says, you will find me there, Alice.
Hmm.
And she goes, but Hatter, but a dream is not reality. And he says, well, who's to say which is which? Who's to say which is which?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, because it's all a dream within a dream, a dream
Yep.
within a dream,
Yep. Yep.
right? So with that, we've dissected and covered all of these different bases, all to kind of come back into the same point of, like, it just is. It's there, and we're in it, and we know it, and we don't quite know how we know it, but yet we just be it. So
Mhm.
beautifully said. Beautifully said. I love that, Michael.
Awesome.
Like I said, I could talk to you for hours. I hope you'll come back on
I would love
another
to.
on
This was
another
fun. Yeah.
show. Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. And thank you for your time. And thank you for being
Thank
you,
you.
and for your heart, and for the wisdom you shared with everybody, and all of the connection. It's been a lovely give and a lovely share. And we've been in this beautiful healing spiritual energy this whole time that we've been here. Our spirit's been here. We've been in the power. No, they're not too, which is another gift in itself.
Awesome.
Lilo and Stitch, Bernie Krumis. Okay, I got to go watch that again so I can get that. um, Everyone, thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon and evening. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed weekend. We're still in summertime, so we've still got sunshine and flowers and
Yes.
warm air to go out and be outdoors in and enjoy this beautiful world that we have all created together as the big us. So may all of this love and all of this healing and all of this beauty that we have shared and created and expanded here in this last hour be infinitely multiplied, so that every being, every form of consciousness will feel loved and heard and seen and accepted. And may all those who are searching for home find their way back to where they belong. Lots of love to everybody. Thank you all so, so, so much for your loving energy. We couldn't do it without you. So with that, thank you for coming onto the Sacred Spiral Network. Thank you, Michael. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kelly Brickle, for making all this possible. She is our producer, who
Thanks,
is
Kelly.
keeping all this up and running in the background with her vision, with her imagination. And so we're very grateful to her. We will see you next Friday on Embracing Infinity. And with that, we say goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Amen.
Thank you.
Bye.